Just put that over there. So in theory, we're live again, mate. Tuesday,
our Tuesday, just after lunch session.
Yeah, and we're actually managing to do it as well, which is quite good. And usually for us, we're actually on more or less on time. I think we're only about 9 or 10 minutes late for a change, which is good.
Well, we're here, we're chatting. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, and one of the things that we wanted to chat about this time was about hearing voices and how it can affect people. And the main reason for that is in the UK, we have a case going through the law courts at the moment where a young man fatally dived. I think it was 3 students in the city of Nottingham in the UK last year. And it's now coming out in court that he did that because of the voices that he was hearing. And this is something that, in my work, this is exactly what I, as in we, the team, do. And I know that Andy is exactly the same in his experiences as well.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's a very interesting conversation, really, because I think, and it's one of the things, to be honest, that Dr. Palmer Terry was quite interested in. And he was obviously researching schizophrenia, intrusive voices, intrusive thoughts, and he was actually looking at people that had carried out, diabolical acts. So shootings, these mass shootings that we talk about, we see people that are basically killing people that they don't know and stabbing people and that whole thing. So he was kind of collating and going through a lot of that data to see. He wanted to work out from a research perspective are entities and attachments encouraging people to do these diabolical things? And that's what he actually wrote. I think he wrote a paper, which I probably can find actually and post somewhere. But he did write a paper on, are the voices that people are hearing entity or attachment problems? And is that what's encouraging people to do these terrible things? And every time there is one of these mass events, these mass shootings or semi-terrorism type events, more often than not, when you actually read the police reports, they do talk about the fact that the perpetrator was hearing voices, and they say that the voices were encouraging me to do these things or telling me to do these things. So I think it is a very real thing in our society that we have this unseen element of attachment that is connected to people, that is telling them to do negative things and to kill people and to create these diabolical acts, basically. And it's written about as in, from a kind of society perspective, we say, oh yeah, he was hearing voices, but nobody's actually looking at where those voices come from, what they are, and why they're connected and why they're trying to get people to do these terrible things. So it is an interesting conversation for sure.
I think it's something that definitely we need to look at and push. And one of the things Andy and I want to get to is when we get the team around us exactly how we want it, that will relieve me and Andy to do other things and to push the academy in different directions. And we do have analysts, we do have people working with the academy behind the scenes. We do have so much work that Andy and I do that just doesn't come out because it's not relevant for people to know or see. But we do need to push this because, as you say, Andy, it's very regular for people to say that they hear voices and they are being tortured and persecuted by these voices. And it's that makes them go out and commit these hideous crimes. But it's accepted that person was schizophrenic and then they're jailed. It's not accepted that they need to find out the source of this voice and where it could come from, because there's a famous case in the UK, and certainly not the situation that I want to dwell on. I think it was the 1980s that we had the Yorkshire Ripper. And the Yorkshire Ripper was a guy that went out and he basically mutilated, I think it was 9 ladies. And he was saying that he was tortured for years from the voices that he was constantly hearing. And from our point of view, anybody that hears voices has a level of mediumship. It just depends on where those voices come from. And it just depends on whether those voices have a negative tone or a positive tone. And just as Andy and I have taught spiritual development, you can train somebody to enhance the level of communication with the voices that you hear. Likewise, you can train somebody to be confident enough to dispel the voices that you hear, especially after you've had an SRA level of clearing. Would you say that's it in a nutshell, really, isn't it? It's an acceptance of mediumship, an acceptance of hearing voices from another dimension, and then understanding that you can deal with it, and then being able to deal with it. Sounds simple, Andy, right?
Yeah, I think you've covered it in summary. I mean, that's the whole thing, is that, my understanding, certainly from Chen's opinion, is all humans are telepathic. So we're all born telepathic. We can all talk to other energies that we can't see. We can talk to spirit that we can't see from birth. And quite often parents see their children doing this when they're 1 and 2 years old. They see them looking around the room and laughing or pointing and clearly having a telepathic conversation with a grandparent or somebody else that's there. And then obviously part of the school system turns that off. So we get taught at school, that spirit isn't real. And if you're seeing or hearing things, then it's not real. So you kind of feel a bit of a fool, probably. So you end up closing yourself down by your own elected choice and turning yourself off. And then the whole school system is about, we teach you something and you repeat. So it just creates repeaters that can repeat the same thing, but effectively it's kind of dunning down the conscious awareness and turning telepathy off. And this is the whole point, Jonno, that you just said. You and I do this every week. We teach people to bring telepathy back online. And telepathy is connected to the subconscious. So in our conscious waking state, we don't really have telepathy unless we're mediums or psychic. And obviously you and I do, because we've spent 20 years learning to have it turned on and talking to our guides. So people like us can do that as mediums effectively. But most people can't do that. But most people can, using meditation, where you actually activate that subconscious layer where telepathy is connected into, start to talk to guides and see guides and actually connect to spirit. So this should be like a normal thing that we all do all of the time. But of course, the way that we all live in society is it's not normal anymore. And people with mediumship qualities or psychic qualities in the past were obviously kind of burnt at the stake, really, back in the kind of Salem witch trial days, etc. And this is the thing, isn't it? These people that are hearing voices and telling them to do bad things generally have been through traumas themselves, or they've done lots of substance and drugs and stuff. It's kind of broken down the kind of psychic and spiritual protection, and then they can hear other voices. So from a kind of medical perspective, it's called auditory voice hallucination. And again, this is what Terry was researching, is AVH, is it kind of a real thing? Or is it a case that people that have auditory voice hallucination are schizophrenic and hearing voices? Are they hearing spirit? And that's what we believe that they are. In fact, we know that they are, because when we work through an SRT clearing for people that are schizophrenic or having intrusive thoughts, we can stop the voices and we can stop the thoughts, because we know it's a spiritually based problem most of the time. Not all of the time, but I think our 80-20 rule probably comes into play, that for out of 10 people that are hearing voices, we probably can help 8 of those people. And the other 2, we can probably dull the voices to a certain degree, but depending upon their life experiences and maybe traumas they've been through, they may be surfacing their own internal voice, which is why we can't stop it, because then it's a internally created voice in their own mind, not an external spirit that's connecting and talking. So this is the kind of research that Terry was doing, really. And this is kind of, in a way, it's a shame we didn't really get to finish some of this stuff. And as you just said, Jonno, this is what we need to be doing. So you and I need to have this team behind us of all of the girls and guys that we're kind of training to be doing the actual work. And you and I need to be kind of leading the field again with Terry and looking at the research, connecting to groups of people like PTSD soldiers, so Help for Heroes. I know I keep talking about it, but at some point we need to reach out and connect to Help for Heroes and start working on case studies of people that are experiencing either those sorts of intrusive thoughts and voices or PTSD, because we know that we can work with PTSD, because of course it's trauma based, and trauma will have attachments connected, and the attachments will be causing a lot of the negative thoughts, intrusive thoughts, anxiety, that type of stuff. So it kind of as you keep saying, mate, the field's so wide, it's just trying to find time to get into some of these research areas that are actually quite exciting to do. And that's what kind of fires me up, really, to start to lead or pick up where Terry left off with the research, I guess.
It's definitely how we have to be. But of course, just as Terry experienced, you do get, I'm going to say, virtually every door closed in front of you when you try and speak about this, particularly when you try and speak to industry professionals. Because the one thing that we don't do is that we don't prescribe drugs. And I'm not going to get into that whole conversation, but if you're on medication, it just makes sense that medication knocks your frequency. And if you have anything that's knocking your frequency, that leaves your security door ajar. You wouldn't have a fire door that wouldn't close. You just wouldn't do it. You'd have a fire door that closed fully when there's a fire. And if you're on medication and you have a need for that energy protection and that sovereign clear energy, you got to be able to dominate your own space. And my opinion is that you don't always have the ability to do that if you're on either social drugs or medicated drugs, or whether you're self-medicating. It's anything that knocks your frequency will leave you open to the energies that surround you. So Terry, frustratingly, had a number of experiences where he was talking and where people would understand everything he says, but they couldn't professionally acknowledge it. So it is a question, as Andy knows, that we need to dedicate our time where it's useful. There's no point dedicating our time on a closed door that will remain closed. We need to find ways, and we need to get people on board that are going to help us to creak that door open, and get in there and get the work acknowledged. Because I do this work with complete confidence, and the confidence isn't because I do it, therefore I believe it. That's BS. The confidence is because I see the feedback. The confidence is because and I talk for Andy here as well. The confidence is because we see the differences. We're told the differences. How clients come to us initially with their problems and their trauma, and then after a clearing, sometimes it takes a little bit more work, but then after a clearing, you can see huge differences, massive differences. And this is where we want to go as the Academy. Yes, we're a teaching organization. That's what we set this up to do. We set it up to train practitioners to the highest possible standard we could possibly achieve, world-class practitioners on a worldwide scope, to push the work out there, because it is a worldwide problem that is needed. But also as the Academy, that gives us strength to go out there and approach these organizations and to work with these organizations. And it just makes me so sad, really, when you hear again that another young man who suffered with torment because he was hearing horrible voices, which eventually led to 3 young students in Nottingham being knifed and killed, when an hour's session might have stopped that and saved 4 lives. The one who was hearing voices, the 3 that were knifed, and then the effects of the family. And this is, Andy and I joke about a lot of things. We joke about each other, we joke about ourselves, we joke about everything, but we always try and keep the energy light in what we do. But the work is very serious and goes into the depths of the psyche, really. As Terry often said, we're in the trenches. This is the spiritual paramedics. This is the spiritual first aid team. This is where it starts. And it starts with a clear energy. And it's that we need to get people to understand, Andy, isn't it? And
I think that's the thing, John. I think you've covered it really well. I mean, obviously, when we look at a lot of these shootings and, again, these diabolical events that we see, they happen in different places around the world. And when we hear that the person that perpetrated that event was hearing voices, we both look at each other and we think, wow, as you say, in an hour session, not to say that we can fix everybody, but in an hour's SRT clearing, you can guarantee that the level of voices they're hearing and the level of negativity we can put to bed, more or less. And like you say, some people that have been through difficult problems, or they're self-medicating on some pretty hard substances like heroin and that kind of stuff, may need more than one session. But generally, we more or less guarantee to see a really positive improvement in everyone that we work with on that 80-20 rule. So it is so sad. And like I say, when people have died, there's a knock-on effect to the families. The person that the perpetrator of the crime obviously ends up going to prison. That affects his family or her family. So the knock-on effect, is in sort of big numbers. 10, 15, 20 people are affected by one person doing something negative that could have been stopped if we'd have cleared them and removed whatever attachment is causing that problem. And it kind of brings us on to our sovereignty chat that, this is the whole kind of conversation that we speak of every day, really. And I quite like that little hat you sent me a picture yesterday of "Make America Sovereign Again," which was a bit of a joke thing, but it was quite funny. But we could have one say "Make the world sovereign again," because this is the thing, is that from our perspective, most people have attachments. They don't even know they have them. So people that are suffering with anxiety, depression, intrusive thoughts, schizophrenia, all of these sorts of things will have attached some type of negative energy that is kind of pushing that feeling and pushing those symptoms and, creating a negative energy and vibration that person lives in. So you can medicate to a certain degree, and medication probably helps for some people, probably doesn't help for other people. But effectively, spiritual problems can only be fixed by spiritual resolution. And that's the deal, isn't it? Is that we're in this world now that we're realizing that lots of people's problems are spiritually based, and they can only be basically resolved by spiritual methods, because taking medication isn't going to detach a level 2 entity that's been with someone for a long time, that's whispering thoughts in the mind and telling them to kill everybody they see in their local mall or supermarket. So, this is the thing, you might be able to dial down the actual volume of the kind of intrusive thought and voice, but you're not stopping it. And then the person's in such a state they can't exist in society because the medication's so strong they can hardly walk. And I've been to psychiatric units and seen people walking about with the shuffle, basically, while they can hardly move one foot in front of the other. Their eyes are half shut. They can hardly converse or talk. So they're medicated beyond the ability to actually exist in their normal kind of way. And obviously, they're still hearing voices and they're still having the thoughts, just that we've sort of dulled them down to a point that and of course, there is no resolution there. It doesn't actually fix the problem. But from our perspective, with remote spirit release, a 1 hour session in a different part of the world can remove and clear those attachments and make a huge positive difference to that person's life. And it's a shame, really, that we're having to push this, because you would think, with all the problems going on now in society, people should be talking about spirit release therapy and remote spirit release as the kind of number one thing to try before everything else. And if it doesn't work, then go down other routes. But SRT should be on everyone's lips, really. And unfortunately, it obviously hasn't been.
No, I think, without wanting to get into this side of the conversation, but if we charged thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds for a clearing and there was huge profit in this, it might take a different route, but that's not the way that it works. But I mean, the sovereign energy that we talk about, and just to be clear on that, sovereign to us is an energy that is 100% pure, 100% owned by the owner. No disruptions, no distractions, no attachments, whether they're earthbound, whether they're of any other source, any other dimension, no DFEs, no plates of energy in the etheric being, no devices, no AI attachments, no AI interference and integration. Your soul energy is pure, without any outside influence. and that is what's sovereign. And also sometimes, probably interesting to go into, Andy, is the after effects of being sovereign, because sometimes you have people that expect, if you have a clearing at 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock they expect to be a different person, and in some cases they are. Some cases we do get that feedback straight away. They can feel it immediately. Some people can even feel it happening. But that's all going to depend on how sensitive you are and how good you are at dissecting the messages that are coming through your body into your conscious understanding. But also, what if you don't feel as good? Because there's also that as well. And we will refer to that as the sugar effect. What if you don't feel as good? Now you're sovereign, because it's not common, but it's not rare for someone to say, I don't feel as good as I did before. And this is where the sugar effect comes into it. If you're used to having teas and coffees with sugar, you're very used to the taste. You're very used to how it tastes, and you like it, and you enjoy it, and you look forward to it, and you might be addicted to it. That sugar might be attracting you to have another coffee and getting you into that habit.
I'm drinking coffee.
Yeah, you're drinking coffee. That's a cup of sugar, isn't it?
No sugar, no.
Yeah. But that's the thing. As soon as you take sugar out of your tea or coffee, it tastes different. It doesn't taste as nice. Certainly for the first cup, you'll drink it and it won't be anything like as enjoyable as the cup you had before that had sugar in it. Yet we all know that sugar isn't good for you, and that sugar isn't good for the body, and that sugar is addictive. And you go through that withdrawal of that feeling because there's no sugar in there. And that works exactly the same way when you become sovereign. Because I'm going to say, Andy, I don't know if you agree, but I'm going to say that for the majority of people, they're not sovereign. And for the majority of their lives, they haven't lived in a sovereign energy. So what are you used to? You're used to having that attachment. You're used to having that energy on you. So when it's lifted and taken off, you will feel different. And there are attachments out there, particularly the false guides, and when we go into that will deliberately make you feel good. They will deliberately make you feel confident. And then when you take that away, the feeling isn't always as nice. And then you have to get used to how you're feeling with your sovereignty and how your energy is. And then you start being able to build on that and take responsibility for that. It's an important thing. Sovereignty is, with the academy, it's not just about helping people get sovereign. It is about teaching. It is about helping people take responsibility for their energy. And if we can do that, mate, we are going to help people do that. And if we can stop or certainly reduce the numbers of people that are hearing voices and going out and committing these heinous crimes, what a difference that would make, mate.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Everyone has to have that kind of like reason to get out of bed, really, and that was the whole point of continuing the work that we were doing with Terry and Terry's research and that kind of thing, is that he'd found over 10 years of his time and effort, and Terry was spending 9, 10, 11 hours a day, 7 days a week researching and working on this whole subject, which is why the book that he wrote, The Science of Spirit Possession, is a book that no one can read because it's so complicated, because it's written at doctor level vocabulary. I've tried to read it a couple of times and I've never got past chapter 10. Basically, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
But you've got to be in that world to be able to understand it. But that's what he came up with, is that spirit possession is a scientific problem, effectively, and we can actually identify it scientifically, and we can clear and remove those entities. So sovereignty is the key, and I think you're right. Is that my understanding now is, I reckon that 99% of people on the planet probably are not sovereign, as in their energy isn't their own. They have other things attached, or they have holes in or perforations in their etheric field, or they have interdimensional parasites or portals or AI or whatever else, other spiritual things connected to them that makes them not sovereign. And when you feel sovereignty, that is highly addictive. That is your sugar, really, because when you wake up in the morning, you don't have intrusive thoughts, intrusive voices. You don't have something else trying to control you that you can't see. you know that you're this autonomous being in your own right and you're sovereign, and that's the way you want to stay. And it takes time and it takes practice to maintain that. We've been doing it for donkey's years, obviously, so we're generally quite good. But we both still have times that we're not sovereign, but we know immediately when we're not, and then we reach out to each other generally for a quick check and a quick clearing, or anyone else in the academy. Because this is the thing now, is that all of the new people coming into the academy all have the same skill set to do things in the same way. So in the old world, I'd have reached out to you, and you'd probably reach out to me. In the new world, we've got new people now that we could feel confident, 100% confident I could reach out to anyone that we've certified, and I would do that in the knowledge that they can clear me and they can check me and they can bring me back to a sovereign state. So it's quite a powerful thing that we're sort of putting together. I can see Laura's just said hi, so we'll say hi to Laura for joining. But this is the thing, is that every single certified practitioner in the academy is coming online with the skill set that obviously Terry's put together. And it's game-changing for clients and game-changing for us as practitioners as well. And that has a knock-on to the family, because when you know how to maintain your own sovereignty and keep yourself clear, then obviously you work on your own family. So every practitioner has a family of X amount of people. So those people start to become sovereign, and then they tell other people how they feel. So this whole thing becomes this tidal wave. And I think this is the thing, mate, is that you talked earlier about the start of this conversation was about people committing heinous crimes and diabolical acts because they have entities or attachments that encourage them to do it. And this, I think, is where we don't need to really knock on the doors of any type of establishment, really, because eventually they'll come to us, because this is the resolution, and this is the way forward, and this is the new method. So we look back in time, exorcism was kind of a Catholic priest and a cross and holy water and stuff flying around a room, and a priest being attacked and all that kind of stuff. But we don't have that at all. We have a spirit guide team that does that for us. So we don't have to get involved one-to-one with some negative entity, which probably isn't much fun, as we both know. But what we've actually got is we've got a connection to a guide that is part of a team that can remove and clear these things from people. And there isn't any flying around the room and all the other types of crazy stuff that we see in Hollywood. It's literally done in seconds. There is no real timeline, and the symptoms are resolved, within an hour, basically. So this is the new version of exorcism, if you want to call it that. And obviously we're championing that, and we're sort of leading the way from an academy perspective worldwide to do that and train people to do it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, quite honestly, I'm quite glad that we don't have to go into the room with that individual, start flying around, having that body levitate off the bed. We've all seen the film. I don't think that's something that you'll ever find me doing. You'll see my tail end far quicker than you would anything else.
Yeah, I think any entity, mate, would look at us and think, "Oh, we can't lift them too." Too much food, too much drink.
That's also true. Too much red wine. Yeah. But that's But this is the way. It is the new way forward. It's very, very safe. It's a very, very safe way of working. But I just want to come to Bliss B, who put a really, really good question on. What if someone doesn't want to let go of an entity that's attached to them? There's not a lot you can do. There's absolutely not a lot you can do, because if they're consciously allowing that entity to come in and attach and work with them, they're effectively creating a conscious contract for that energy to come in and work. And they will be the more difficult ones to release. Even if you go above and go to the higher self, and if the higher self gives permission to work and clear, you can do the clearing. It doesn't mean to say that the conscious energy within a second later will not call that entity back, or a similar entity, so that they get exactly the same experience as before. And I have had it with a medium where I was asked to do a clearing for a medium, and White Hawk basically suggested that if we did this clearing, we would be taking money and making no effect. And it was because the medium's ego liked that energy that it gave that person, liked the way they had a false confidence and a way that they spoke to other people, which actually wasn't very nice. But White Hawk was not keen to do the work, because whatever we did, it would be a waste of time, because that person would call the energy back, because that person's ego was too big for the clearing. So we can do work on people, on third parties that don't necessarily know we're going to do a clearing. We do have a way of doing that, and we always go in with permission from the higher self. But just as Andy will tell you, if Chen turns around and says no, Andy ain't doing it. If White Hawk says to me, we're not doing this clearing, we're not doing it. It's as simple as that. And very often, the only reason they will do that is because the person on the other end receiving the clearing is not in the right space to receive the work and try and keep themselves dominant. And I'm not saying that everyone does that, because it is, after a clearing, it is down to the individual to take responsibility of the energy, of their own energy. But if they are deliberately going to start calling back entities, immediately they're clear. There's not a lot you can do. With the best will in the world, there is not a lot you can do, because their conscious is creating that contract. I think that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think you framed it really well. I think it's the same concept. Look at lots of people with dementia and some of these illnesses. Dementia, you see different personalities coming through. So people that are kind of moving into that space have lost their sort of mental capability to a certain degree. And when we actually view and kind of look at the energetics of someone with dementia, you generally see portals inside their etheric, and those portals are open by them normally because of the mental state they're in, but they allow other spiritual energies to come and go. So people have different, when you're talking to someone with dementia, you will see different personalities come and go. The face changes, the eyes change, the speech and the way they speak, the dialect changes. So you actually see spiritual possession happening in those sorts of people. And of course, it's quite difficult because you can clear them and close them down. But again, if they're opening up, those portals in their own etheric field, then eventually you end up with attachments or other spiritual energies coming through. So some of this is, like you say, we can do. There's so much we can do in one way, but obviously for some things it is difficult to try and maintain sovereignty when you're working with someone that isn't able to understand fully what you're trying to do, or won't kind of follow the rules and the protocols that we're using to try and stay safe. And the same with lots of mental health people with kind of Asperger's and some of those types of things. Again, mentally they're in a different frequency, in a different space. They're thinking differently. They're talking to different things. A lot of them are quite telepathic, and you'll see them start talking to other spiritual energies. So again, when we tell them to stop doing that and to close themselves down and protect themselves, that can be quite difficult for someone who is in that way and has that type of condition generally.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly how it is. And Fatima's question as well was about historical curses, where families have been involved for generations in exorcisms and things like that. And yeah, so really, one of the things that I was explaining yesterday is that whenever you say to a lot of people that you work in spirit release therapy, a lot of people say, yeah, I do that. And quite regularly, I ask them what they do, because I'm thinking, no, you don't. And of course they do, but they don't do it to our level. So when you ask them what they do, they say, oh, yeah, I release earthbounds into the light, blah, blah, blah. And that's brilliant. And that's fantastic. But that's one level, just one level of what we do. For my work, myself, I do not, or when I work with White Hawk in the spiritual team, we have 19 levels, not one. And we also release earthbounds into the light, and that's one level of 19. So you can see the depth of work that an SRA practitioner will go into is far deeper than many, many, many different release therapists, because they literally do one level. And I'm not saying that's not good, because it is good. Anybody that works and helps earthbounds go into the light and help clear that person is doing fantastic work. But regularly, as soon as you say SRT, they say I do that, and they don't even know what it is we do. So it is a thing. And curses, this is what I'm coming to. Curses is another one level within the 19 that I do, and within the protocol that we have for the practitioners in the SRA. Curses are found, acknowledged, and released, and it can go back generations. They can be historically, and they do come into this life experience, and they will continue into the next life experience until then they're negotiated to be closed or physically removed. So that is something, definitely, curses that come into it. And I know that we were going to talk about curses in a bit more detail on another chat, because we are going to start doing these on a Tuesday, just where we come in and just have a chat about some of the things that we deal with. But yeah, curses, I personally don't see curses as one of the more trickier levels that we go into. I don't know what you think, Andy, if that's the same for you.
Yeah, again, same sort of thing. I mean, obviously, the concept of a curse, everything is energy. So the concept is that if I think badly of you, which obviously I wouldn't do, mate, would I? Unless you really piss me off. But if I thought badly of you, then I'm going to send you a blast of my negative frequency, my negative energy. That's going to hit your etheric field and do nothing, because you're well protected. But for someone who doesn't have an etheric field that's well protected, because they don't do their protection, that blast of negative energy is going to kind of erode their field to a certain degree. And if I continue thinking bad things about you, I'm sending you negativity. It's kind of like a low-level cursing, but there's so much around cursing that we could obviously have a whole conversation about ancestral cursing and occult-based cursing, where you're paying individuals to work with spiritual entities that basically attack you continually in the form of cursing. But the way that I get Chen to show me is that when we scan someone, I get him to show me an image of a person. I can see their kind of etheric field. And then if energy is coming in from the left that hits their field, that is like an ancestral curse from past lives or older type stuff. If that energy is coming in from the right and hitting them, that's a live current curse in today's lifetime they're having, basically. And obviously, depending upon the thickness of the strand that he shows me, depends how much energy is behind the curse, effectively. So again, cursing is, we could spend all day talking about cursing, but again, for us, it's a one-off. It's one thing in the protocol, as you say, of like 20-odd things that we're working through and looking at. And I think this is the interesting thing, again, isn't it, is that when we talk about spirit release therapy, because spirit release SRT comes under this kind of banner of lots of people do SRT in different ways, what we're doing isn't really SRT. It's much more involved than the old version of SRT. And that was the whole point, is that when Terry was working to research all of these different spiritual problems, and we're looking at things like portals in etheric, earthbounds connected, entities connected, cursing. Then we're looking at things like interdimensional parasites that can be connected, moving into things like alien implants, AI. There's a whole list of things, but most people only, as you said, just do one of those things. Whereas we're looking at this massive list of spiritual problems that we keep adding to, because our practitioners are now finding new things when they work with clients, and we're looking at how often that happens, like the AI stuff that came up a while back. So we add that into the protocol. So again, our version of SRT isn't the old version of SRT that people were doing, and obviously other practitioners do. We've got like a new protocol, which is kind of massively up to date, covering this massively wide subject of spiritual intervention type problems. But it comes under the old title. So like you say, we're going to start to go over some of these things each week and talk about each kind of level, what we do and how we see things. But from a cursing perspective, obviously it's all about energy and thought. And the key to cursing is, again, you can't see the energy coming into your field, so you don't know if you've been cursed, which is the biggest problem. So many people have old ancestral curses that are still active in their family groups or their family units, or they're being cursed by current people in their life or people they've fallen out with or work colleagues. Again, you can't see it. So we need the spirit guide team to show us that energy that's coming in, and then obviously we clear and remove it in the different ways that we kind of work through.
And that's the thing. And as Elaine asked, can you curse yourself? Absolutely. Everything in the universe is intention. Every single consciousness, unchanging consciousness, is intention. And if you have an intention of cursing yourself and speaking ill about yourself and speaking yourself down, you will be affected by those words, because thought preludes energy. Energy follows thought. If you're going to put that intention into your words, energy will follow your words. Your words will prelude energy. So if you're going to create that link, even to yourself, on a lower vibration, bringing in cursing yourself, you will be affected on an energetic level by that cursing. And if everything in the world around us is energy, the banner behind me, the plant that you see, everything is energy, and everything therefore can be affected by energy. So as Lara put on there about someone that was cursing into their phone or something, you can do it. You want to have instruments around you. You want to have things around you that are pure. I remember sitting in a physical circle, and we used to sit weekly. And for anybody that doesn't know, a physical circle is a trance mediumship circle where you create physical phenomena. And it takes a very, very experienced trance medium to sit as the circle trance medium, basically. And it's a very, very disciplined circle. One of the ladies that was in circle brought in basically a tool to help in circle. And the moment that came into the room and into our circle, a lot of our phenomena that was being worked ceased immediately. And it was only after the third circle, we used to sit once a week. It was only after the third circle that we took that tool out, and our circle went back to normal the next week. And it was because that tool, we then found out, was not brand new, had come from a second-hand shop, and we had no idea what energy that was bringing with it.
So when you said tool, Jonno, do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, in this case, it was like a mock peace pipe. That because one of the guides had a Native American influence, White Hawk, she saw this. It wasn't a real one. It was an ornament of a Native American peace pipe. So she saw it, thought that it would be good for circle, and brought that in. And immediately that came into circle, the energy changed. So, whatever had happened, whatever that peace pipe had experienced before, was brought into that lady's home and then brought into circle. And this is where you have to be very careful with clearing stuff that you buy. And if you're receiving gifts, you'll be careful. And I don't mean that you have to be paranoid by it, but you can quite easily clear energy. It's not a thing. It's quite easily done, but it does make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, again, when Jay and I bring things in, we used to go off antique shopping and find things in antique places. But again, they're in a big room or a big shop full of hundreds of different old things, and you've got no idea what's been done with them. Or, again, if an object is in a room and someone shoots themselves, you can imagine the explosion of negative energy, and that negative energy gets imbued into everything in that room. So if you happen to go and take a picture from that room and then put it into your room, you're bringing that level of negative energy into your space. So if you don't clear it, then of course that picture sat there now vibrating at this hugely low frequency because of what happened in the space that was in. So when we start thinking about our rooms and our spaces, this is why kind of feng shui and stuff comes in, continually clearing things with sage and palo santo and that kind of stuff to just remove any stagnant low vibrating energy. And I've got like a little bottle of spray that I just put some water in, a couple of drops of oil, basically shake it up, and then just kind of go around the house and noise change generally, but just spray, the room, the house, under the desk, just cleansing and clearing space. So it doesn't have to be a kind of complex thing to do. It only takes seconds. But every few days, I quickly wander around with a little spray and just spray things, and then use my tinctures just to do some sound clearing. So this doesn't have to be difficult things to do. It's just doing it regularly keeps the space energetically clear, which is the key, really.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, smudging. Louise works spiritually. I work upstairs in this room. Louise works downstairs. And when we smudge and we sort of have that smoke going into the house, when I say we pack a room out with smoke, we absolutely pack it out.
Turn the fire alarm off.
Yeah. It's like you got to swipe it away so you can see where you're going. But we fairly regularly do that through the whole house. And of course, just as you are, Andy, with this work, we look after this house and the energy of this house literally all the time. But there are many people that never clear a house. Imagine moving, going into a new home, and you're now going to walk into somebody else's energy that they've been there for 10, 20 years, longer. And those walls will carry the energy and those emotions. So it's very, very simply done. It's not hard, but it's, I think, essential in your spiritual cleansing and hygiene routine.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the things I learned. So 20 years ago, Jane and I moved into a house together in Chippenham, basically. And it was only after we kind of moved in, probably a week later, we got talking to the neighbour who was quite elderly. And she said, "Oh, how does the house feel?" And we were like, "Well, it feels okay. We've just moved in. We didn't, this was like 20 years ago." So she said, "Oh, did you know about the guy that got shot on the doorstep?" And we're like, "Really?" I thought she was joking at the time. And she said, no, the woman of the house was having an affair with the guy across the road, basically. And when the other bloke found out, he turned up and basically with a shotgun blasted the person in the face that opened the door of the house that we'd just bought. It didn't kill them, but obviously, there's a massive... So if you imagine the explosion of negative energy being shot on your doorstep with a shotgun, and all of that energy is kind of pushed into that space, into the house, that kind of thing. And of course, we laughed at the time. I thought if we'd have known that, we wouldn't have bought the house. But of course, the whole reason that we bought the house was to learn about energy and clearing energy. And that was kind of our job, to be there, to bring the vibration of that particular house and where it was up. And, we didn't have a great time, particularly in the couple of years that we lived there. But we did obviously change the frequency. We brought things up. We were doing psychic surgery and healing. But again, you kind of think, well, of all the houses you could possibly buy, what are the chances of you buying a house that someone's been shot on the doorstep? It's like 1,000,000 to 1. And yet there we are, having to kind of go through changing the vibration and bring things up. So it does make you think about it every day, really.
It's important. And just as Natasha, who's commenting, and Natasha is somebody that we talk about a lot. Natasha is one of our closest workers in the academy. And she does work as a reseller, and as she'll say, she always clears the energy first. It's an important thing, because you never know what you're picking up, and you never know what you're bringing back home. And it's a very, very simple process, and being able to control that, but it makes a huge difference.
I didn't realise that was Natasha. I was a Linny Lady. I didn't actually connect with you. So hi, Natasha. So where does the Linny Lady come from? Is that just the alias that you use when you're hiding from your spiritual self?
When you're hiding behind budgies.
Yeah, behind budgies, yeah. I think this is the thing, isn't it? When we know more about energy and we experience how it feels, you can feel the change because it's actually tangible. So when we do smudge rooms and we clear rooms with sound and that kind of thing, you can walk into the space and you actually feel the difference. And that feeling isn't spiritual, it's physical feeling, that it feels clear, aerated, energy is moving and flowing better. So, as you say, when we walk in some of these, some clients' houses, if we're doing house clearing, you can feel the stagnant, stale energy that's been sat in the corners, that's never been cleared and moved. The windows and doors haven't been opened, and we haven't used sea salt to kind of clear out stale vibration again. It makes a massive difference. And it's basically cost-free. There's no cost to having to do it, really. And the positive effects are enormous, really.
There's a massive difference. If you wanted to cleanse your house this afternoon, you haven't got to spend any more than a couple of quid. And if you have nothing at all, if you have no tools, you haven't got to spend any more than a few pounds, and then that will last you for a good few clearings as well. So it is very, very cost effective.
Yeah, because if you think about it, if you had no money and you had nothing, all you need is a knife and a fork, and you could walk around the house banging them together, which creates sound and vibration that will clear space. So obviously we use tinctures and spiritual tools and things because it's good fun to do that, and it's like the known method to clear space and energy. But as you say, if you've got no money at all, you can still do these things with the simplest of things, basically. And if you look
Yeah.
at the kind of natives, that's what you see with all of these natives in different countries. They're dancing around, they're using smoke and fire, and they're kind of, pushing away bad spirits, bad energy. They're trying to attract protection from their ancestors and stuff. So again, this doesn't need to cost anything at all. It's just old knowledge that's been lost, really, through kind of our Western progression with science leading the way, so say. And we've lost a lot of these old ancient traditions and things that actually had a purpose and actually made a real difference to your life.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's as Cassius says, I've never bought so much salt in my life. It's one of those things, but everything in spirituality is simple. Everything in spirituality is easy, and providing you can create that vibration, you can create change. And just as Janine and Elaine have said, clapping your hands does just that. You don't have. I mean, we've got a nice pair of tinsels and clangers, well, chimes. There we are. We've got a lovely pair of chimes that we chime around the house. But you don't have to have that. Simply clapping your hands creates that vibration, creates that disruption. Bring your intention in, bring your confidence in, and it makes a huge difference. These are the chimes that I'm referring to.
Those bad boys, if anyone's not seen them, so these are tingshuls, we call them tingshuls, chimes, but they're just kind of lock them together, you can actually hear the sound. So the more you use them, you can hear that ring goes on as it clears space. Apart from fighting them together, but schoolboy error. But you get the general concept. These things are just, it's just easy ways of clearing space, really. So if you're working, if you're a practitioner and you've got people coming and you've got client after client, even just using those between clients will clear the energy. So I know you probably do the same, John. When I work physically from a room, the first thing I do is walk in and get those bad boys working for a couple of minutes to clear the space and energy. So I don't need to burn stuff. And of course, lots of practitioner rooms, you can't burn things because they have smoke alarms, but of course, tinctures are fine to use. So you can give those bad boys a bang, get that space cleared, and immediately you start to feel the energy open up, which is good.
Yeah, that's it. And I just very quickly, the reason why I'm smiling is you're talking about the smoke detectors. Louise was doing a demonstration with a guy called Peter. They were working together. They had a number of people that bought tickets to come into their room for a demonstration of spiritualism and mediumship. Two very, very good mediums working together. And they thought they'd smudged the room before anybody turned up. So they cleared the space.
Yeah, of course.
So they smudged. And in the room, the fire detectors picked up the smudge. And 10 minutes later, the sirens were heard. And the fire brigade turned up. And literally just before they went on stage or not on stage in this particular instance, but in this room, but just before they went on, they had to explain to the fire brigade that it was actually them spiritually cleansing the room, which caused the smoke alarms to go off. And then the owner of the building turned up because he was notified of this fire alarm as well. But there are other equally effective ways. Music, anything with a vibration can create change. I know that Lara and I talked about vibration and particularly sound energy and that sort of thing yesterday, but I've just seen a hi from Fiji. That's not a name that we get. It just threw me out a little bit. But yeah, anything with
Perfect.
anything with a vibration can create change, and it's as simple as that. And fantastic that we have somebody in from Fiji. That's absolutely brilliant, and I would love to come to your not your I was going to say your residence, but that would be a bit weird. But I would love to come to Fiji. I'm a big rugby fan. I used to coach rugby. At Saracens, and one of the coaches around me was the Fijian Sevens national coach. And to watch Fiji play sevens rugby was outstanding, and I would love to visit Fiji. And there you are. I'm talking myself into an invitation.
You're talking yourself into an SRT training session in Fiji.
Yeah, our next course is in Fiji.
Yeah, right. Okay. So I think Dubai's on the map, isn't it? That we were talking about earlier. I know you were talking to Elise about Dubai.
Yeah. So that's going to be released next. We're going to have a meeting very soon, Andy and I. We're going to try and confirm dates and months in our calendar next year so that people can have more notice. But yeah, it does look like Dubai is certainly on the cards for the beginning of next year. We have just released, well, no, we haven't released it yet. We haven't officially released it yet. We've just created a page and a form for people to log their interest in Dubai. We've got a few people that will go to that immediately because we've got a few people waiting. And, you know, that little comment, please come to Australia. Honestly, if there are people in Australia that will come together to learn, one of us, both of us, but the SRA trainers will be out there teaching. No question.
You might have to drug me, mate. Stick me on a plane for 24 hours. I need like intravenous alcohol or something.
Are you like Mr. T from the A-Team that can't fly?
Well, yeah, I spent quite a lot of time flying with work, so I kind of got done with flying, I guess. I was going in and out of Germany every week for quite a long time, so spending hours and hours at airports waiting and, you know, not much time actually in the air kind of gets a bit boring after a while.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing. This is a teaching academy and we want the work to go worldwide. So if there is a country, if there is a place that can get together a collection of people that want to become practitioners to the level of which we work, we will have trainers and we will have SRA come out to you and train. And that is our job as an academy to make sure that's done. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think, you know, from our perspective, maybe people probably don't realise exactly what the master plan is, really, from a spiritual perspective. Certainly, the guide, Chen, Whitehawk, the team, Terry. The whole point is that, you know, Spirit Release Academy is going to be, well, it already is a teaching academy, but the plan is that we have not just myself and Jonno, but teams of trainers that get dropped. So we're continually running courses all over the world, all of the time. So at the moment, it's been UK. So we've done obviously a couple of UK-based in-person sessions, which were kind of our dummy run, I guess, for us to just make sure the material was right and the way that we trained was right, and the output from the students and practitioners was good, which it has been. So now we've got that kind of cookie cutter model. We can start to get people trained in the teams, and then we can start to create teams of people that work around the world, basically training with exactly the same way that we do. Obviously, multiplying the academy out in parallel. So that's the kind of intention, I guess, from our perspective, mate, for next year, isn't it? Is that rather than just you and I having to try and do everything, which again we always seem to be bottleneck, is a case of having teams of people that can go places and basically run courses as and when required. So if you're living somewhere and you're interested in SRT and maybe you're a client of ours and a client of the academy, and you're thinking I could get together 20 people in a room that you guys can come and teach, or you can teach us to do this work and we want to become students, then, you know, drop us an email to the contact@spiritreleaseacademy.com email address and we'll basically get a conversation going.
Lots of things happening. There's so many things happening that we're not ready to discuss yet. And we just don't stop. And that's why we need those people. So like Andy says, if you are in another part of the world and you are thinking about becoming a practitioner, have another think as well. What would it mean to you to take this work on properly, professionally? And then would you be one of the people that you think we would like to represent the academy and train in that country or continent? Because we literally can't do half the stuff that we want to because we just don't have the capacity to do that. So it is an expanding thing. Energy follows thought, and we have a lot of thoughts and we have a lot of energy going into it. So
we do, that's for sure. That's been good. I think that's why these chats are good, mate. Every week we can just have a different agenda. It's something else we're going to try and get better at doing is actually publishing the agenda in the same way Lara does, basically. So you guys know what's coming, you know what we're going to be talking about, you know what the core content's going to be. So rather than just a kind of general chat, which obviously we've been having, we're going to try and make it more specific, even if the timeline is smaller. So we're going to talk about symptoms of spirit attachment. We talked about sovereignty today. So we're going to try and have like key things that we talk about and discuss. So if you guys have things that you want us to talk about, or you want us to bring up, or you want to engage with us in conversation, or if you're a client of a practitioner, so you've had spirit release for therapy and it's changed your life in a good way primarily, but even in a bad way possibly, we can get you on, and we'll talk to you and we'll discuss, what you experienced, how SRT has changed your family or your friends or yourself, how it's changed your life. So we're very keen to basically make this a very real channel on conversation, that we're not just sat here pumping we're effectively have courses coming up, because that's what SRA is all about. We're very interested to connect with the recipients of the actual practice to see how it's changed your life. So if it's changed your life and you want to talk to us and you want to tell everyone about the changes and the things that you've been through, then we're very interested to have that chat. So again, just drop us an email at contact@spiritreleaseacademy.com and we'll be in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to give you an idea, if you are thinking about doing this, we kind of work on 15 to 20 students. We don't want too many in there because we need to keep it personal, but 15 to 20 would be good. We have people that are paid in the academy that no one sees, and they're faceless and they're nameless. And they're all part of the team helping us to go forward. We've got a big meeting on Friday with one of those people that's really going to help us project the academy going forward. So if you do get around 15, we've got an option to come out. If you get around 20, that would be great. And also, like I say, when we're with you, we can meet you, we can spend time with you. And if anyone has any intentions of working with us, we certainly have opportunities on many different levels for that as well.
Cool, well said. I think that kind of covers it off nicely, really.
Yeah.
But as usual, we're out of time, or over time.
We're always out of time.
Because time doesn't exist, right? So we don't have to be prompt on time, do we?
Well, you tell Louise time doesn't exist, because if she says we're going somewhere at 1 o'clock, it's literally 1 o'clock we're going somewhere.
Yeah, we live the same life, mate. Well, I can waltzing down at 5 to 1 and then say, but I need to use the toilet or make a coffee or something, and we're supposed to be going out. Jane's never quite so keen on the time doesn't exist conversation, really. So we are living the same life, just in different houses.
We are. So wishing you all very well. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your time. And we will be back on Thursday, 4 o'clock UK time, where we're going to bring in one of our practitioners that's recently certified by the name of Polly. We're going to have a chat with her. Already, she is working to a very high standard. She's UK based and she works with people in the US. She works with facilitators in the US as well as the UK. Just proving that this work is there's no limit to how this works. It's as simple as that. So thank you for your time, and we shall look forward to speaking to you again.
Cheers, folks. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.